time. I haven't gone live in a while. I've been preoccupied with editing my book. I'm trying to get it done by a certain date so that it's entered into a competition. Wish me luck. It's my first book, almost done. But I've been having a tuned ear to world events. I usually am so busy that I never get a chance to just look at what's happening and catch up. I had a lot of catch up to do, and so already from the get go, there's a lot of war stuff. Ukraine seems to be dying down. There are warships around Venezuela. The Trump has labeled the current leader in position not the official president because of all of the corruption and cheating that happened in their elections. This guy is basically took over the nation, and that's the claim. I don't know the actual facts behind that. I know that there's oil rigs. I know that Chevron is drilling for oil there. And I know there's a little tiny country with the oil, and that's where the allies come in. That's where American has allied with to do this kind of weird takeover, so that they can place the true leader that won the election. As the story goes, I don't know. I'm just delivering what I'm hearing. So there's that. Ukraine, like I said, seems to be dying down, the whole conflict there. But if you go to Israel, it's insane. So backtracking, like I said, I haven't looked into worldly affairs for over like a year because I've been so busy with my own projects. And so looking at it from this perspective, it's insane. You had all these university students that were pro-Palestine with no prior knowledge of who these people are, the terrorists and their leadership groups, and how they're tied to other terrorist groups, and how their own religion and faith, Islam, is really dedicated to hating the Jews and hating anybody that's not like them, and trying to take over nations and using the Quran as a way to conquer other nations. And if you put things into perspective, you really have to look at it this way. There are 50 plus nations that practice Islam in that area, and there's only one nation that is considered Jewish, right? So look at it from that perspective. Look at it from David and Goliath. In my opinion, if you look at it from that broad scope, I believe Israel has more of a right to exist there. Not basing it off religion, because if you go off religion and what the Bible says, then you get into this whole dilemma. Well, God claims this for our people, then the other side goes, well, God claims this for our people. Then you put in the third mix with Christianity, and it's like, oh, no, God said it's our people. So I get away from that because I just look at it from territorial region. I think, in my opinion, Israel would be a good idea to have there as a stronghold for a culture of life, opposite of that is Islam, which is a complete culture of death if you look into it. And just the way they treat people, the way they take away liberties away from people. It's the complete opposite of Western values. If you look at, let's shift our perspective to Europe. If you look at France, Spain, I think Spain just banned Islam completely, just completely banned it. It said, no, we're not going to allow this to happen here. We're not going to allow you to just come in and conquer our nation through militaristic tools, like using immigration as a way to conquer our nation, using religion as a way to conquer our nation. It's not going to happen. You're not going to implement Sharia law in our own nation. It's not going to happen. UK is fighting a tremendous fight. I mean, they are rising up with their flags. They have this thing called Raise the Flags, because even their own police is going around tearing their own flags down. That's how you know you've lost your nation, when your own police is literally taking down the nation's flags. That's how you know you've lost your nation. That's when you have leaders siding with immigrants over your own citizens. That's how you know you've lost your nation. So people are rising up. They are rising up in the thousands in the UK, raising flags because they are sick of it. They know they're losing their nation, and they're not gonna just lay down like dogs. Ireland is also standing up. There are new voices, new leaders who are waving their national flags because they have the same issue. You have people going into places, public places, and being completely taken over by these Muslims that practice Islam, and they do their rituals and do this, but they do it on grounds that are either public or sacred to the Irish people. And so that's when they had enough. Whenever they cross that line, they don't have respect for the people that already live there. They don't have respect for the rules, the religion that already exists there. They don't have respect for what the Irish people called their own sacred grounds. They're just stomping on it disrespectfully, not literally stomping on, but I mean they're being highly disrespectful. They've had enough. If you look at Poland, Poland is a nation that has secured its borders and has secured immigration in a way that is very systematic and correct. They have, like, you could consider a prime example of how to conserve your culture and nation as one people, and accepting immigration, but you do it legally. So, if you look at our own nation here in the States, you see what's happening in DC. Think about it. It's being completely overrun by crime. It's not like they're targeting a certain ethnic group necessarily. They're just targeting crime. Now, on side of that, they are targeting illegal immigration because, well, people are just sick of the crime. Just like they're sick of the crime, they're sick of the same thing. It's kind of an invasion. It's an invasion of a nation's own way of culture of doing things. And when you have police siding with immigrants and not your own civilians, that's how you know you're losing your nation, because police should protect their people, right? You should protect people in general, but when it's clear as day that they're just siding with one group of people, maybe because it's by orders, they don't have a choice. They follow orders. That's the kind of people they are. They follow orders like military people. You would hope that some of them would have some kind of consciousness to be like, well, what we're doing is wrong. We're capturing criminals and then letting them go. For what reason? Because they're immigrants? That's insanity. You're adding to the chaos, and they don't even realize. They don't think. They just follow orders. Anyways, I don't want to get into it. I want to stay unbiased as possible. But I do live in this nation, so I do have an opinion. But when it comes to other nations, Australia is having the same issue. They're being taken over by Islam, and they're now standing up. Now, it's really interesting to see all the nations that have sided with pro-Palestine. They're the enemy. All the nations that have sided with pro-Palestine, they're aligning with the Axis powers. It's so clear as day. But it's not the people of those nations, it's the leadership. And that's how you know that those nations have been completely taken over. They don't have the real leadership of that authentic nation. They have leadership placed in there that's allowing this to happen. You could call it that, or you could call it just weak leadership. But in my opinion, I think they're completely corrupt, taken over, and they're allowing it to happen. If they were true leaders of their nation, like Poland, they would never allow it to happen. They would never allow this to happen. A true leader would never allow it to happen, because you would know how to protect your nation. So if you allow it to happen, it seems like you're fermenting it. You're fertilizing the chaos. So that means you're against the nation. You're not a true leader for the nation. You've been corrupted. So you have UK who's saying they want to officially create Palestine as a state. The thing is, if you look into the history of that region, and I'm not the expert, but like I said, I've looked into it, Palestine is kind of just a made-up renaming of the area by Romans that went in and conquered it because they were trying to literally ethnically cleanse the Jewish from the face of the planet. That's what they were trying to do by renaming names. And so for somehow these Muslims and that practice Islam, and maybe they don't, but a majority do, obviously, they've been pretty much ousted by their own people. So there's no reason, if you look at it, it's almost like the nations from surrounding areas have been almost doing it on purpose, leaving these people completely on their own to defend for themselves. So there's no way for you know any kind of ending the conflict, because even the nations of their own people won't accept their own people in. So that's a big problem that a lot of people don't see. They're just taking sides because they see the pain and suffering. And so when they see the pain and suffering, that's what they focus on. And so they get sucked in to one side. They don't realize that that side is completely on the wrong side. Suffering inevitably will happen, especially during war, and so it's kind of funny because our nation has had its own wars, it's had its own revolutions and this and that, bloodshed, brother against brother, civil wars to free the slave man, and then you have people criticizing Israel here in this nation because they're doing just that. They're just fighting for their nation. They're going through almost like a civil war against the people that literally want to destroy them and wipe them off the face of the planet. They have every right to defend for their lives and to defend for their culture of life and to defend their innovations. A lot of the things that exist today exist because of Israel and their scientists. Their military. I looked at their military. They're very well equipped. They're well funded by the U.S. I think it's good that the U.S. has actually teamed up with Israel, because at the end of the day, Gates of Vienna. Look at the Crusades. The Crusades happened because Islam was taking over the world, and they had to stop it. They had to put a doorstop to Vienna. Was it? And so Israel, to me, in my opinion, looking at the world stage, Vienna is essentially the gates. If Israel falls, it'll just and look at Europe, it's already falling. But if Israel can stay strong in that area and become stronger and secure that area, become a democratic country, which it is. It's you have people of religious faith, you have non-secular, just like in the States, you have more liberties, and so their Islam is literally trying to destroy Israel from the face of the earth, and you have people now in America, backtrack a year, in the universities, you have students being brainwashed by the media who have been lying to them, and have been caught lying. Now it's come out after months and months, right? It's come out they lied. They've skewed pictures. That they take pictures of people with diseases, actually known diseases, and call that starvation. It's hideous how they use the atrocities that do happen during war and use it as propaganda. They use civilians as human shields. They use children as human shields. This is just a fact of war. To deny that is you're just denying facts. You're living in a reality where you've never faced war and you don't know what it's like. So you're devoid of reality of what war is, And so it's funny, Israel's like, we're at war and you're telling us that we're horrible sinners. Like, excuse you? Like, you're a nation, you've been through wars, you've had your revolutions. Like, who are you to point your finger at us and say this about us? Like, we're literally defending our right to exist. So are the Palestinians, but their own people won't take them. That's not Israel's fault. If their own people won't take them, how is that Israel's fault? It's not their fault. They're being used as a chess piece in this war. It's unfair to the Palestinians, but it's unfair to say that Israel is all at fault here, because they're not. They're not, because they try really hard to even at war to be humanitarian. So can you imagine? Being at war here in the nation during the Civil War, and other nations who have greater power saying, look at the atrocities they're doing. Let's point the finger and tell them how horrible they are, and make them to be the demonic Satanists that they are. That's just stupid. Okay, you're not being logical. You're not being reasonable. You're not being realistic to the situation of what's at hand. You're looking at it from a complete different lens, which is the safety of your home. It's easy to have, ideas that have been brought to you by propaganda first, especially if it gets pumped out there. Your whole view is going to be skewed. And if you don't know the history of the area, your whole view is going to be completely skewed. Listen to the people, what they're saying, boots on the ground. What are they saying? They're telling you the truth, look at it from both sides. It's clear as day what's happening. You can get past the propaganda. But yeah, it's horrible to see so many students so ignorant. They believe they are the smartest people on the planet, because they went through schooling, and they're so young, and they just got completely schooled in debates, especially by this guy known as the Green Prince. The Green Prince is this guy. I don't know his name because I'm not so too familiar with all the names in our culture, right? But essentially, this guy, he was the son of a father who was a founder of Hamas. He is the son of Hamas. That's what they call him. He's published 2 books. He's told us he sided with Israel because even his own father turned against him. So this is the culture of death. Like, you get to decide your children or Islam. And so in a very radical fashion of Islam too. But essentially, he basically sided with Israel, and his intentions at first, when he got caught by the military, he was caught. They treat him like they do to get answers, and they offered him, hey, you can be like a spy for us, you can work for us. And so initially, this guy said, well, if they think I'm a spy for them, I can double cross them and report back, which is what he did. He reported back to Hamas, and they treated him worse than they did back in Israel. And so he was like, fuck this, I'm leaving Hamas and going back to Israel, and I'm siding with them. I'm not going to double cross them. And so that's why you see this guy pop up everywhere for like a whole year talking about what Hamas actually is, and what they're doing, and what they plan to do, and how they use their own civilians as propaganda, and how they cause their own suffering for the propaganda. It's horrible. So it's one of those things that you really have to look at it. And so it's a crazy thing going on there. So Israel is saying they're very close to gaining absolute control of Gaza. I hope that they do. I hope they end the war. But now something insane has happened. Just recently, Iran is going through a revolution itself. People in Iran are pretty tired of not having liberties. So there's a rise against Islam. And just recently, I think a palace or something got bombed. Israel bombed a palace in Iran, which is like, what are you doing? But apparently, what they're saying is that the terrorists are hiding there, is what they're saying. And I don't know. It's just unbelievable to me that Israel would go this far. It's just kind of crazy to me. So now I'm starting to question their motives now. But if they say there's terrorists hiding there, that's why they did it. And we'll see what happens out of that. But even Egypt, Yemen got bombed, Israel bombed. I mean, who knows if Israel really did it? I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I mean, the president of Israel or the prime minister hasn't come out, whoever he is, hasn't come out to say what has happened. I haven't heard any news. So the speculation is that, yeah, they were targeting terrorists, but I haven't heard it from their own words what that was. So that to me is pretty crazy. Egypt is sending troops to the border. They're getting ready for a defense or offense. So it's ramping up. It's ramping up like crazy. What's crazy is a lot of Americans donated money to Hamas. That's what's crazy to me. It's like literally. That's if you back up. If you rewind time and use the metaphor of World War II, that's like literally Americans sending money to the Nazis. You have to be really far gone to the propaganda to be sending money to your enemy. Pretty insane. It's just crazy to see how many people are for pro-Palestine, which is essentially saying you want to wipe off Israel from the face of the earth. That's essentially what you're saying. It's just insanity. And not only that, I mean, the U.S. is a huge nation compared to Europe and the nations of Europe. But U.S., look at California. They have millions of Muslims who practice Islam. I mean, get ready for chaos. It's already happening in New York. Get ready for chaos. Why do you think Trump has military out and about? Because there he's not going to take it. He's a very strict, old-fashioned dude. He sees crime. Okay, what are we doing about it? Nothing. Okay, let's send in some military in. Let's just squash it. And now he's saying, "Oh, other states, you need help. We'll send the military in to help you out." He's being very decisive. And I said it before in one of my other live. I thought he wasn't doing enough, but apparently he's headed towards a direction which I agree. He's not doing enough, in my opinion. But each their own. Each their own. So a lot of craziness happening out in the world. That's pretty much the scope of it. Maduro, the leader of Venezuela, has about 3 days to basically, I don't know, give up, resign. I don't know what the deal is. I'm not sure what's going to happen if those 3 days pass and nothing happens. I don't know if the U.S. is going to invade Venezuela, which is pretty insane in the scope of things. It's kind of crazy. It's like the Middle East happening all over again, but in South America. It's pretty insane. But America is an empire just like any other empire, and we don't get resources out of thin air. We need the oil. That's just what it comes down to. And we're gonna go in and create cooperations and collaborative. Look at the princes of Syria. They're very happy with the collaboration of the United States. They were never against the U.S. Not as far as I know from the history that I was looking at it. They were never. It was Bin Laden who was radical and didn't like the fact that the U.S. was building airstrips and military bases. They were making deals in the Middle East. He didn't like it. The princes of Syria were like, we have no problem. We're making money. We like our friendship with America. We have no problem. And so that's kind of what's happening in South America. I think you have Venezuela, who is turning into a little Middle East, where the leadership there is I think trying to take over more oil than is fair. Or I don't know the situation. It's Chevron is there, collecting oil, and they're sharing it with Venezuela. As far as I know, I don't know what all comes down to, but America has business to attend there, and if the other leadership is not, let's just say he's not conducting proper business, then Trump's going to go in there. He's all about business. He's going to go in there with all the backing of the military, the Navy, and the Marines, and be like, "Hey, I thought we had a deal here. What's up? What's up? You want to break deals? Okay, we're gonna give you 3 days now to skedaddle." So pretty interesting. Who knows what's going to come from that? Who knows what other nations are going to align with Venezuela? I think already you're seeing China said, "Don't mess around down there because we don't like it." You have other Asian nations saying the same thing. So I don't know who's going to participate in actually backing. I think Bolivia might back Venezuela. Who knows? Who knows? I mean, all the other nations are like, we're not going to mess around with the U.S. It's that simple. We're just not going to mess around, especially with Trump. We're not going to mess around with the U.S. So I think everyone's leaving Maduro basically to hang dry, and he's got nowhere to go. Anyways, that's pretty much the update for world affairs. Oh, an interesting update is Candace Owen. And the reason why I bring Candace Owen is because she mixed herself up in some serious allegations against the First Lady of France. She's accusing her of being a it's just too funny to believe, but it's true. So she fell for some dark rabbit hole that led her down astray, and she is destroying herself. She's trying really hard to keep her cult alive. The Candace Owen cult, all her hard die fans are citing her. But I looked at it, and man, she has made, in my opinion, the biggest mistake of her life. And now she is basically also accusing Jews and hating on Jews. With you, you psycho. And so, she's in big trouble. She's in a big lawsuit that she thinks she's going to win. And I don't think she's going to win. She might win because, another country can't interfere with someone else's free speech, but that's not what we're talking about. The lawsuit is about Candace Owens literally being sent the facts that she is a real woman. She's not a trans. Candace literally accused and believes that the first lady is Macron's father. How insane do you have to be to believe it? But she fell for the rabbit hole. She fell for some weird book that was based on no facts, some facts with some askewed facts, and she's basing her whole entire reputation on this. She's going to lose. You know why she's going to lose? Because the lawyers of Macron and the First Lady have sent her proof that she is in fact a real woman who's given birth to 3 children, was married before to some other person, and now married Macron and whatnot, is with him, and is way older than him. She's way older, and it's just really, to be just honest, just racist to point out how some white people look like other white people, and then accuse them of being the same person, and then looking at an elder woman who, let's just face facts, when women get older, they lose feminine genetics. Their genetics get older, and they lose, you know what I'm saying? They don't look as feminine as they do. They look more male because they lose. That's just honest. So racist and just so sexist to point somebody out just based on looks and be like, oh, she's this. It's just, oh my God, what is wrong with you? And now she's blaming Jews for basically KFJ and a bunch of other shit. Like, what is wrong with her? She has completely lost her effing mind, And so, she blames MK Ultra for all the things that other people do. But what has happened to her? Is she a victim of MK Ultra? Because she has completely gone off the crazy, man. They've just lost it. The worst of all, her personality is the worst, because now she's just doubling down, because that's just her personality type. She doubles down, triples down, quadruples down. She's not the humble type, I tell you that. She thinks she's right on every single thing, and I just detest those types of people. It's as bad as nails to a board when they think they're right about everything. Hey, I'll be the first to say I was wrong about something, and I will be humbled, but we have seen no humbleness out of Candace, if I may say so. And I have every right to judge her. I mean, she's on YouTube. She puts herself out there. She's claiming her reputation. Well, I'm telling you, she is wrong. She's going to lose this. She's going to so lose this. I heard both lawyers. Again, one side thinks they're right and they have the skewed facts, and then one side is like, no, here's the reality. Here's the reality of facts. Here's what we did. We tried to talk to Candace, and she, instead of accepting the truth, she just started making more fun of us and making money, profiting out of making fun of us. Yeah, we have a problem with that. Like, don't, and Candace Owens isn't just a podcaster. She's got international reach, so that's why they are suing Candace Owens. They may not win, but the fact that I don't think nations can say what other people in other nations can say, but the lawsuit is meant to destroy her, and I think it will. I mean, even if it's proven that the First Lady is not a man, and Candace wins the lawsuit because of her right of free speech in America, it'll still come out that the First Lady is a woman, and so she's going to lose. She might win the lawsuit, but she's going to lose her reputation because the truth is going to come out, So, in my opinion, she is very close to a huge mental breakdown of like tremendous psychosis proportions. She's gonna lose it, in my opinion. She's because no one's gonna believe her. You know, no one's gonna believe her anymore. She's blaming Jews and blaming the first lady of being a man. It's just ridiculous. She's lost it. She's completely lost her mind. You know, so she never once apologized. All she does is says, "I never said that. I never said that." And I've looked at the videos. She totally says what she says, and then goes on international television and says, "I didn't say that." Oh my God, she totally says what she says. You know, I don't know what game she's playing, but she's in big trouble because as long as she keeps yapping, she's just getting herself in trouble. You know, she doesn't exercise her right to remain silent because she can't. Her whole business is around yapping. So all she can do is double down or lose her business, which I think she will anyways. But who knows? She has a whole entire cult around her. So, but I feel sad for those people that just love her to death, you know, and don't have any rational to think for themselves. You know, she's leading them astray to hating Jews. Like, what are you doing? You know, like what the hell? Same with a lot of people. You know, Tucker Carlson. I was really surprised. He's been very vocal about being pro-Palestine and 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 just talking badly about the Jews. I don't know what the deal is with propaganda these days. It's just been very, very anti-Semitic, very anti-Jew. It's very insane, and you know, I don't understand it. I don't get it. I don't get it where it all comes from. I mean, propaganda. You know, people falling for the emotional aspect rather than rational. It's very easy to be manipulated if you're not using your brain. You know what I mean? Do I feel bad for the people suffering? Of course, everyone suffers. Everyone feels. You know, I have sympathy and empathy for everyone. But you know, what about the truth and lies? How much is the lie stretched? If they were starving, you know, how much of that was stretched? You know, it's just, you know, you're gonna have famine during war. It's just part of it's just part of it. Do I agree with war? No. But if you have people and terrorists, October 7th, let's bring up October 7th, people coming in and literally killing your civilians with machine guns, literally turning a highway into a death road, yeah, I would be upset too. If somebody came into our nation, think about it. Somebody came into our nation and literally lit up the entire highway and just killed everybody. They kidnapped kids, not kids, they kidnapped, you know, men and women. Not only that, they were literally throwing gas bombs into shelters where people were hiding and choking them out to death. You know, you had a survivor speak out against that. She only survived because she was piled up with all the dead bodies. You know what I'm saying? It's not a joke. You know, and so what about their suffering? You know, what about all the lives that were lost and all the people that suffered? You know, it's not fair to play this game. You know, you're going to get yourself in an emotional Olympics of nonsense. Yeah, it comes down to the greater good, you know, and you know, but that could be also taken to the extreme. Obviously, that's what happens in war, you know. So I think Israel has to be careful not to turn into the bad guys here, and they're very close to turning into the bad guys again on the world stage because of the bombings. Again, I don't know if it's true, if that was really them or if that's just them being set up, but I don't know. It seems very aggressive. That maneuver seemed very aggressive, in my opinion. So I don't know. I mean, think of it this way: World War II, the UK was bombing Germany and killing civilians. It was very aggressive. You know, at what point do you decide as a nation that aggressiveness is required? You know, and how fair is it for us to judge when we don't live there, when we don't know anything, and we're just told, oh, they bombed. It's really hard to say, well, was it provoked? Was it necessary? It's really hard to say, you know. UK did the same thing to Germany, you know, and you ask the Brits, Is that okay? They say absolutely it was okay. They don't take it back. So it's hard to discern these things when death is when innocent lives are. But that's the thing with war. War breaks out, innocent lives die. It's completely unfair. And to the credit of Israel, they've tried so many times to allow Palestine to become independent, and they just didn't do it. They didn't do it. So, whose fault is it really? Anyways, that's the world news. I'm really curious to see how the lawsuit turns out with Candace Owens and the First Lady of France. It's crazy. It's a crazy for the First Lady of France suing an American podcaster who has international reach, who is, in all fairness, is saying a lot of untrue stuff. So can you imagine? Put yourself in her shoes, in the First Lady's shoes. Put yourself in her shoes. Like she is defaming and ruining her reputation with all these lies. And like I said, they sent a package with all this information proving that she's a woman, that she's given birth to 3 children, and she still won't believe it. You know what I'm saying? How crazy do you have to be at that point? So I don't know. I think she's going to lose because she's had the truth in her hands, and that's what the lawsuit's really about, is that she won't stop even though she has the truth in her own hands. So that's what the lawsuit's really about. So I think she's going to lose. Um, she's set herself up for failure. That's just what it comes down to. She's so hard-headed and believing everything that she believes in, as a religion, blind faith, that she just lost herself. And it's easy to do. It's easy to do. It's easy to do with conspiracies. I think it's okay to ask questions, but I don't think you should dive into something that is obviously proven wrong. It's just insanity. Even for any conspiracy theorist to double down on something that has obvious facts against it, it's just nonsense. You know what I'm saying? Um, it's just complete nonsense. It's all based on nonsense. It's based on a guy in France who wrote a book. You know, you can. That's the thing with books. You write a book, and it just seems more official. And so she read this book, was inspired by the conspiracy, and she made a whole series about it, obviously to gain views because she found gold. I mean, think about it. Her jam is conspiracy theories. So, you know, she went down this rabbit hole. She found gold and got millions and millions of views. Not just views, but she's propagandized a lot of people. That's the problem with these people that have these enormous reach with their podcasts, is they literally they become a propagandized machine. YouTube has the problem of echo chambers, and so you have people who stay in their echo chambers and never step foot out of it and look at other facts that will askew and destroy their little bubble. You know what I'm saying? So it's like a cult, it's weird. People get stuck in the echo chamber and become like cultists of the people they follow. Like Joe Rogan. I watched like 2 episodes of Joe Rogan. And I was like, that's enough of this guy. I've had enough of this macho. He's like, I don't know if he plays dumb, but he's always been just like 5 years behind, 10 years behind Alex Jones. So, I mean, if you watched Alex Jones, watching Joe Rogan was just redundant. It made no sense. I watched Alex Jones a lot because I was curious. I was like, what's going on? He says a lot of things that a lot of people aren't saying. So I need to look at it because I want to see all the facts. I want to see what everybody is saying. I don't want to just take a little bit over here. I want to see a little bit of here, 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 and here. That's how you get a real view of things. Anyways, I'm here editing my book. I have one last chapter to do, And once I edit my book, I have to format my ebook, and then I am ready to publish. So I can be publishing my book as soon as tomorrow. Here's a physical copy version of it. Working on it right here. A little book about insights and wisdom of like 15 different filmmakers, people who have worked with tremendous actors, even Martin Scorsese, Mel Gibson, 50 Cent, things like that. Tremendous conversations with very interesting people. I had it on YouTube, but I wasn't getting any views, so I took it all down and I transcribed it and turned it into a book. So I think I'll have better success selling the book and doing that. It's very interesting. It's very interesting. And as you know, when you record something and publish it on your YouTube, it's a form of copyright. I've copyrighted. This is my material as the indie showcase. We created this material, or it was given to us, and so we have ownership of it. And so I've copywritten the book itself. The book itself is copywritten. So all of this is copywritten, and I am looking forward to selling it and spreading all this wisdom out to the world. It'll help fund the Indie Showcase, which is basically funds. Right now, it's funding the Stay Gold Film Festival, but it's funded hundreds of events around Tulsa, screening local short films. That's what I focus on. I've been a writer for a long time, a ghostwriter. I've been a screenwriter. Nothing sold, nothing made. I've made my own movies. I've made my latest movie is called Stray Kids. I have a trailer on my channel you can check out if you're interested. But I'm building my channel, so I'm getting closer to 1,000 subscribers. I appreciate it. I will do another world update soon. I will get back to regular scheduled like those shows that I have, like gardening and positive messages and vlogging, that sort of thing. I'll get back to doing that because that really helped. In the last 2 months, I've been doing that, and it grew the channel tremendous. And I want to get back to it because that's what people like. People like the gardening. They like the positive messages. Some people like the vlog. Some people like the animation I was doing. That's another thing. I'm pretty excited. Next year, aside from working on my second book, I'm actually going to work on an animation project that started on YouTube, and so I'm going to pursue that as a New Year resolution. My New Year resolution this year was to have the book, have my film released, and what else? And do 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. So I'm getting there. So I appreciate everybody who's been tuning in, listening. If you're new, I appreciate you stopping by. But right now, I got to finish my book, so that's what I'm going to do. And I guess when I tune in to more news on the world stage, I will tune in and tell you all about it. So, all right, until next time, see y'all later.